Hello, once again, all my fellow patriots and you filthy leftist stalkers out there. I've got a very interesting guest, a woman named Lisa Ekman, who has written a book on escaping the Democrat cult. I love talking to people who have walked away from the Democrat Party, and this lady is no exception, and she's written a great book. And her name is Lisa Ekman, and the book is called Deprogramming Democrats and Uneducating the Elite. Welcome, Lisa Ekman, to the Angela Box Show.
Thank you so much for having me, Angela. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I'm always fascinated to walkaways, and I'm sure you're familiar with Brandon Straka's organization, Walkaway. What is your story? Tell us, just tell us what happened here.
So my story is I have been working for 20 years in Washington, D.C. I used to say I bled blue. I would
Mm-hmm.
have said vote blue no matter who, which if that's not cult-like, I don't know what it is. And it's also very emblematic of the I don't think, I just do what I'm told I'm supposed to do attitude on the left. And really, COVID opened my eyes and woke me up and reminded me that I am in many ways a classical liberal who's really a constitutionalist, in my heart. And the censorship and the complete I mean, lack of any sort of science, data, and evidence to support the decisions that were being made really opened my eyes to the party and what they had been up to for many years. And the fact that the people who censor are never on the right side of history.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was a competitive debater, Angela, in high school and in college, and I'm an attorney. I'm a trained attorney, and I spent my life believing that if you have the facts and you have the data, you are never afraid of a good debate. You're never afraid of having the conversation. And when I saw them just shutting people down for simply asking questions, and saw the media literally rewriting things in real time,
Right.
just like out of George Orwell's 1984, the Ministry of Truth was changing the past so they could change the present. It woke me up. And there's a lot more to it, but that I think gets in a nutshell that I remembered I'm a First Amendment absolutist. And
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't just mean free speech. It means the right to go to grandma's for Thanksgiving. It means the right to visit grandma in the hospital if she's sick. And it means the right to worship when and where you please. And when all of these things were just completely eviscerated, our natural born, our God given rights that our founders were smart enough to enshrine in our Constitution, unlike any other civilization, and these were just being eviscerated with absolutely no public discussion. um, it, it, it made my brain start to work again because, quite frankly, part of what the indoctrination on the left does is it says you don't question authority. You don't ask questions. When you're told to do something, you do it. And it allowed me to think and question again. And once I started, everything, like the thread on the sweater that you pull and the whole sweater unravels, everything falls because it's all a house of cards built on lies and deception.
What's frustrating to me, Lisa, is that when you debate Democrats, whether in person, online, or whatever, they have this opinion that because the media says what they think, I mean, they basically are being told what to think, and then it's being reinforced in the media. They have a sense of arrogance about them, and a sense of you're shit on my shoe, essentially. And that's a very frustrating thing because you can present to them facts, and if they don't want to hear it, it's just in one ear and out the other, and they just come back with their talking points. So it's very frustrating.
I understand why that's extremely frustrating, and it's beyond they don't want to hear it. It's that they really can't, Angela, and there's a few reasons for that, and that I talk about this in the book. One of the things is what happens in schools these days, and a lot of people on the left are very highly educated, but not very knowledgeable, as a matter
Mhm.
of fact, because I would have laughed at this if you told me about it 10 years ago, but our academic institutions are institutions of indoctrination to the left. They are over 90% of the professors are Democrats, and a lot of them are radical socialists and communists. And what they've done is they've created in the minds of the educated Democrat a monopoly on knowledge. If you haven't been trained by these very Democrats, you can't know what you're talking about. You're not an expert. And in the cult, they worship authority and they idolize the expert. And I think you have to look at it as a religious almost devotion to these institutions and these experts. So if an expert told them something and you're contradicting it and they don't view you as an expert, they almost literally can't hear you. And you hit the nail on the head. It's an echo chamber of media, of mainstream legacy media, but it's also an echo chamber in terms of the social media that they're on. And so it gets reinforced, their confirmation bias, and it gets reinforced. And when you state a fact that comes from someone that is not an expert in their mind, it is immediately disregarded. It's not even conscious because they cannot counter an expert. And one of the things that's true about a lot of people on the left, and especially women on the left, is that a lot of them are not religious. They don't have any faith or any relationship with the creator. And so they rely on external validation from the left in order to get their own sense of acceptance and self-worth. So they can't contradict anything everyone else on the left is saying, because the left has made it really clear, if you don't walk in lockstep ideological conformity with us, we will cancel you, we will excommunicate you, and even if you are our parent, we will never talk to you again if you are not with us. And so since they don't have that faith and they don't have God's acceptance, they don't have God's love, they need it, and so they can't accept anything that doesn't conform to what the cult is telling them they need to.
It's interesting you mentioned what you were just saying, because I often debate with people here in Houston that are elected officials, and I'm struck by one who said to me during the whole transgender crap, or the porn and kids, kids like the school libraries, things like that. He said to me, he was like, off the record, I totally agree with you, and a lot of Democrats totally agree with you. And I go, then why don't you stand up and say something? Because this is batshit crazy to defend putting, genderqueer and whatever in school libraries, or to say that children should be socially or medically transitioned. Why don't you stand up? And he goes, because I would get primaried. And that is certainly what happened to this one state rep here. She was primaried right out of the Democrat Party. She became a Republican. But that is certainly a fear for these elected Democrats. And until more of them are able to push back on that and say, there are certain lines we should not cross, whether we are on the right or on the left, and let's all agree on this one thing, this nonsense is going to continue.
Yeah, and I think that is true. And I think as strong as that is for elected officials, it's just as strong for rank and file members who may have differing opinions. I think there's something else that is going on, and you hit the nail on the head a little bit before. There's this moral superiority on the left that, we are the good ones and you're automatically a bad one if you don't agree with us. And so one of the things I think it's important to really remember, if you are ever trying to actually reach someone who's on the left, which if I could wake up with as deep embedded in the cult as I was, I think anyone can if the right circumstances arise for them, is that by and large, most people on the left are very compassionate. And it doesn't come across anymore these days because of what I'm about to say. But that compassion, that true compassion for other people, is manipulated using fear. And the gender stuff is a perfect example of this. I'm going to be afraid for this poor, vulnerable kid because I've been brainwashed to believe that they will kill themselves if we don't affirm this madness, if we don't participate in the delusion that they have about who they are. And so that fear is then weaponized into anger. And that anger is what you see expressed at you when you dare question them on this orthodoxy, this belief about gender ideology. So um, it's based out of compassion, and accessing that true compassion, getting to it, is one way you can help someone to understand and wake up. But it's very frustrating because they literally don't think for themselves. I mean, if you watched any interviews, or if I don't know if you did any, of people who are attending the No Kings protests, so to speak, and anytime they got questioned on anything, it's the top line talking point. There's
Mhm.
nothing beneath it.
Yeah.
And so they don't allow themselves to think. They just repeat back what has been you know, drilled into their head repetitively. And repetition, by the way, is one of the main hallmarks of indoctrination, is repeated over and over again. And you know, the fear of being excommunicated, being kicked out of the cult, being called out, is really strong, and it keeps people from speaking up. And it had to, for me, I guess, because I refused to put my pronouns in my email signature ever, and I didn't really understand all of this even long before I woke up. But it really took me seeing that if we had another, you know, 8 years of democratic control, we might pass the point of no return
Yeah.
for keeping our republic, in order for me to snap out of it.
Oh, I think if it had been 4 more, I think if Senator Nepaz had gotten in there by whatever fraud they had to do, it would have been over. Lisa, this is so fascinating because, you know, real quick before I have you tell everybody how to find the book and everything like that, have you personally lost friends or family because of your change, your sudden change?
Um, yes, I no longer really have any of my old friends. You know, it. I think the other thing that happened, and social media contributed to this, is that people, and the purposeful rise of identity politics, is that people's political identity is now so central to who they are. It's
Mm-hmm.
really hard for them to have friends across the aisle, so to speak. Although I kind of reject the left and right. I think we're, you know, we have more in common than they want us to believe, and we have so. But yes, I lost pretty much all my friends. I'm thankful that my siblings and I are still very close. There's a lot of my family that I just haven't talked to, and I, because I know if I did, it wouldn't go well. But what I will say, for anyone who may wake up, is that I have made so many amazing and wonderful new friends, and that um, even though waking up and realizing that I had been brainwashed was probably the hardest thing I've ever done, it's so worth it, because nothing can compare with reclaiming your mind and being able to think for yourself again.
You know, it's interesting because you know, I tend to, we all tend to herd with our own, I think, overall. But I find that Republicans or conservatives are certainly the more tolerant people because I have people in my life who are leftists and whatever. And, you know, I don't hate them, but they have preconceived notions of me or our side. It's like, well, then who's, you know, it's the whole thing. It's like, you're not tolerant at all. You're just tolerant if we go along with you.
Yeah, and that was one of the big changes, and I talk about that in the book quite a bit, is we went from intolerance and the acceptance of agreeing to disagree, and not not looking at someone who thinks differently than you as someone who's morally inferior to you, but hoping that maybe if you continue to expose them to your viewpoint, that they may come around to your way of thinking, you know. And I think one of the things that has become really clear to me is that most people on the left are completely controlled through fear. And when you're controlled through fear, um, you will do anything you can to protect yourself. It's that, you know, that kind of thing. Um, and when you when you're conservatives and Republicans are often very religious people who reach out with love as opposed to reaching out because of fear, and it creates a really different ability to want want to have conversations and be there for people who don't think like you.
Well, Lisa, this could go on for an hour. It's fascinating to talk to you, but tell people how they can find your book, because this is a book that should be read. It's a primer, really, on how to deprogram yourself and what happens next. So, how can everyone find your book?
My book is available on Amazon. It's also available at Barnes and Noble, and you can check out my website, deprogrammingdemocrats.com. I am also deprogrammed them on X.
Oh, I love this. I will give you a follow. Awesome. Thank you
All right.
so much, Lisa, for joining me today. And I hope to have you back on. This is a fascinating conversation.
It's my pleasure, and I'd be happy to come back anytime, Angela. Thank you
All
so much.
right. Thank you, Lisa.